You subscribe to Pando? That's so hot. 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 You subscribe to Pando? That's so hot.
All right, everyone. Welcome and thanks for tuning in. Today, obviously, a very special episode. Both guests are part of Team Talos from CCP, who have been, I think, recently been responsible for quite some good changes. And obviously there is a patch coming. I think on Monday it's already live. That is actually their project, which we will talk about in a second. So CCP Rise has been on before, episode 26, I believe it was, and I think pretty well known. Made his transition from player to dev 8 years ago, I think. I did my research. See.
Wow.
And CCP Signal, I think, has been a player too. I'm pretty sure,
Yes.
and made his transition 5 years ago. Because I saw actually your tweet, you got. I didn't know that actually. So I knew
a
about the
watch.
swords. Yeah, you get a watch for like. I didn't even know
What?
that.
There's actually a few you can pick from: a watch, a scooter, like an electric scooter. Like it used to be the watch. Like back in the day, it was only the watch, but now you can get, or it was only the
Oh,
coat.
back in the day, it's only the coat.
Yeah,
the coat.
yeah, get like a warm
Yeah.
coat, like from
Mhm.
a company here in Iceland with a CCP logo, which is really cool. But it
Alright.
was like I already had a nice coat, so I picked the watch.
I've never seen that before. That's kind of unique. So you've been with CCP for 5 years. I think
six.
you
6 this summer.
6.
Yeah,
I think you are more in the background. You haven't been like on. I mean, recently you guys have been on way more podcasts and stuff like this, but that's only till like I don't know, maybe
Like,
a year
I
ago or
guess
so.
Yeah, we started doing more. At least me, of course. Like I had been more in the background than more junior as well, I guess. Like not working on bigger features, so not much to say really when you're just a grunt in the background.
Well, I mean, it might just be a smart move too, right? To not put you out there too much, right?
Rise
some
goes
guys-
like this when I go on streams as well. So like
Is
what
it gonna
I'll say.
leak? I'm gonna try to make you guys leak in a minute.
Yeah.
Gotta behave myself.
We'll test that in a moment. But so Team Talos. Before we like give all the credit to you guys, are there more people on Team Talos, and how many?
Actually, Signal isn't on Talos. Signal he's on Team Raw, which we've worked a lot with, so it's kind of like a lot of cross like projects that are sort of shared. But Talos is actually me and CCP Master Plan and CCP Paradox. and CCP Trash Panda, I think.
No, that's
then-
my producer.
Oh yeah, what's mine? Also something about garbage, but I always forget.
I'm terrible with the dev names.
Anyway, there's 4 of us on Talos, but it's
And
cool because
The thing is as well that me and Rise, we were on the same team for 3 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were on
All
Team
right.
Size Matters for 3 years, and then we were doing a lot of like stuff together, and we got to work cross teams on it, like as a collaboration, because we're just still kept being bros, I guess.
Yeah.
And
we
then,
like to come up with crazy stuff like on the weekends and then build it halfway so that producers have to accept it and then get it into the game.
like the filaments, the heat filaments, like a year ago, and and then like
Someone breaking into the CCP
security is here, like
Uh-oh.
gera stream fyrir vinnuna. Hvað segirðu?
He's being reminded, don't leak. Don't
Yeah,
leak.
he's getting kicked out for leaking.
NDA.
There's Hilma with a gun behind him.
Off
And,
screen.
where was I going? What was I saying? Jeez.
Are you allowed to stay in the
Well,
Something about leaks.
no. But so you guys have been working together. Like, I guess my research wasn't 100% on point, but like
we have worked on a lot of stuff. We were on the same team, and we're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
all,
yeah.
shuffling.
And then I've been on the events team, Team Raw, with Fossey, which is one of the game designers. I'm terrible with it. Then Traspanta, of course, the producer. There's 2 other game designers and QA on the team, and we're doing a lot of the live event content, like the Guardian Scholar that you're seeing, and just like a lot, like the Dragonor Blitz and all the stuff we did last year. And the guys have been doing really well.
yeah, some of the changes you guys are responsible for, filaments, the ESS rework is probably that's also from you guys, isn't it?
No, that was not us.
No, that's it's kind of complicated.
The
history
other
of that.
ecosystem team.
It's the other ecosystem team, Axiom.
But so what I'm trying to point out is the feature that's coming now, which we will talk about in a sec. I think a lot of people are fairly optimistic, even though, you know, you might have gotten a different impression. But people are fairly optimistic because it is coming from you guys, and you got a lot of stuff right the last, you know, year or two. So, all right. So let's just dive into that thing.
That's a great take. I look at my favorite website, reddit.com, and I'm not positive that's optimistic the word I would use, but if you say so.
But I mean, that has to do with human nature too, right? Someone says something negative, I think people
Jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, they jump on that quite easily. And then also people pick that up more often. Like you might see some positive things and then that one negative thing that sticks out. So it's easy to get that impression too, or makes it even worse than it already is. Obviously Reddit, you know.
And it's understandable. People are hungry for changes to the game, and it's been quite a break because of Christmas and stuff. And then we just making some, you know, there was just a teaser for example, for this specific feature, and no meats on the bone, and then of course there's a bunch of other stuff coming. But
all right. So we were talking about it last episode, right? So the feature we're talking about, obviously, the fleet formation thing, and we were speculating like, what is it? What is it exactly? How is it going to work most likely? How much impact is it going to have and stuff? And did you guys like listen to that one?
Yeah, most of it.
And how far off were we?
You know, at first I thought you were way off. I was listening again, and you were close in a lot of places, but every time you got close to the more interesting parts of it, you were like, no, they'd never do that. And switch to some other thing. But most of the time when you went close to those, like, maybe it does this crazy thing, that was more close to how it actually works. So a lot of good guesses, but every time you came upon a good guess, you seem to back away from it. Like, no, that'd be too.
No, CCP is no.
They would never do that.
So, yeah. All right then. So what did we get right then? So start with that. What did we get right?
The big thing was something you kept coming back to, which is true, that it's only for warp. It's not for on-grid regroup or some other, you know, you spent a while talking about like moving people to particular positions to get bonuses or other weird on-grids, like after you're out of warp and on-grid stuff. And there it's all for warp, but
and taking away player agency and fleets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
people are worried about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not doing any of that stuff, at least nothing. On-grid behavior is going to matter a lot and be really heavily affected because of how the relative formation works. But all of the actual kind of effect of the feature comes through, like the mechanics are all warp based. So all depend on initiating a warp and moving through warp. But then the implications of that will definitely affect on-grid behavior a lot.
All right, so the big question we came back to, and I saw a Reddit comment from Capco, who's also a well-known FC, and I'm sure like you guys are aware of too, who's not active at the moment, but he's a smart dude, and like he's a crafty dude too, right? So the big question that comes up instantly is, like if I warp a formation as an FC, is the entire fleet just gonna orient itself on me? And then if I get dragged, the fleet gets dragged by a bubble? Or does it work differently?
So there's, kind of a couple questions there, but the fleet is oriented on you. The person initiating the warp is what the formation's always based on, whether it's one of the ones that we have like a configuration for, like the flat plane or a wall or whatever. That's always based off the FCU, including the relative formation. But the paths are figured out independently. So if like you will only hit a bubble if there's actually a bubble in your path. So if you're in a big line and half the fleet hits a bubble, half of it stops, the other half continues based on where the warp destination was meant to be. So you can slice fleets in half, or you can have one dude get hit by a bubble or whatever. The paths are totally calculated separately.
All right, so from that perspective, like a formation warp, you still have to be smart about it, right? Because at first, I think that's what people were worried about, is if it's all based on only the FC, then there's ways around it that makes everything way easier, right? But
right, you can pull people out of formation as they come into grid or whatever, but that won't be the case.
how does it distinguish which ship goes in which area of the formation?
Do you want to talk? So talk first, Cully, about
Mine
how say for the wall formation, like how it's built. Like
Yeah,
how,
because I
how
know
it,
people were talking about, like what if you could then do a formation where your Logi ships are somewhere separate from everyone else to try to keep them
Yeah.
from like
So
getting
I'll let Cully talk through how most. So we have. I'll let you talk, Cully, but just there's two types of formations. One where we're building a configuration based on like a pattern, and one that you have like complete control over. So, but you talk first about how
I'll just go through what we have. So we have 6 formations. One of them being what is actually on Tiki right now. We're calling it the point formation because it's just a little point in space, like everyone's in a little sphere. We have then the sphere formation, which is just an advancement on that, which is you can control how big the sphere can be. You'll have that lever where you can decide, hey, is it 10K? Is it 20K? Is it 30K? Where people get randomly dispersed within that. Like
so it's like the way that you warp now, just like bigger.
Yeah, just a bigger.
But
where if you have few ships, you could be like just few within that sphere. But if you have a lot, you will actually make or fill out that big sphere. Then we have the wall and the plane and the arrow, which are as well size controllable, how big you want them to be. And we also give you spacing options, meaning how big the spacing between each ships as they get built is. So players will get a lot of control there as well, where if you select stupid or like not incorrect, I'd say, depending on your fleet size, you might be really clumped or kind of like not in the optimal formation that you would want to, but that will just come with experience and mastery, where you select the size and the spacing depending on what fleet you have, and good FCs will just get that rhythm where they know what they want. And it will just start building out the formation, for example, for a wall, it will just start building out the formation. But what happens if it's full? If we have, for example, you put in sizing and spacing quite a small size of a wall and a lot of spacing, and you can only fit 10 of the 255 ships you can have in a fleet, what happens then?
what does happen?
We start jittering them around the selected points. So you'll just have like for example, for a wall, it will just start looking like kind of a thick
cube?
wall. Yeah. It'll start looking like a cube.
I mean, that would be like the cube.
Depending on the spacing options you selected, it's basically like how, like for example, if you select a small spacing, it'll get jittered quite closely together. If you have selected big spacing and there's like, for example, say like there's 10 ships quite spread out in that wall, you'll have them more spread out in that cube, as you're saying. And this is all stuff that you're going to be, figuring out and discovering when it goes live.
So it said Borg cube. That's funny.
Yeah, I was instantly thinking about that too.
I also, of course, left out the best for last, which is the relative formation, which is from the center of the FC in 200 kilometers around him. Everyone that is within that distance gets, like, basically it's a snapshot of where everyone's relative to him, and you land like that when you warp.
Including 200 in front of him or 200 to the side or whatever.
Yeah.
All right,
So for you can position Logi, like you were saying, Miranda, you just have to have your Logi drop back 30 before you warp or whatever you want, and then you warp, and then that's where they'll come out.
So that's also enabling you to warp in front of hostiles, right?
Yep.
That would also enable you... No, it wouldn't enable you to warp through bubbles. Obviously, you still get dragged.
No, not through bubbles.
Everyone has their individual vector where they're going to, and if they intersect with the bubble, they'll land in it.
But they'll land the way that they would have landed.
Yeah. If they made the warp themselves. So
for example,
they don't get pulled into the center where the FC is or something. They actually hit the bubble where they would have based on their position when they left.
True for all the formations.
All right.
And I was going to say something else, but anyway, yeah. Go, Pindo.
So what do you think, for example, one formation that sticks out that I was like, what is that for? Is the arrow formation. Like, is it just a V? Do you call it an arrow? Or is it like actually with a line behind it?
You go. You take this one.
I mean, I think it will probably be the least used one. But it looks super cool, and we
All right.
get it
We
really
did it because we could.
I don't think it's impossible that someone would want to use it. I could imagine situations like if you have kind of a heavy fleet and you want some guys close to where you're landing for tackle, but you want some better tracking further back. Maybe it makes sense to do that. You want to be sort of spread out, but not as much as a square, and you want more like back to front spreading. I don't know, but the whole the whole sort of philosophy for the future was to just try and give a lot of tools and see what people do. Like we don't have any specific. It actually started from talking about tools to give people against AoE stuff. I know people are talking a lot about bombs and smart bombs and this kind of thing. And this gives you an option when warping, but one with heavy trade-offs where you're exposed if you're more spread out in a lot of ways. But from there, we just ended up with like a bunch of like a big toolkit where we don't know exactly what people are going to do with it, and that's fine. It should raise the like ceiling for fleet management a lot for FCs and lead to a lot of interesting stuff. And I think it's very likely actually that it ends up being more powerful for bombers than for dealing with bombers because it's easier to get set up because you can warp spread out. So I'm not sure how that'll pan out. We'll just have to like reevaluate what bombing looks like afterwards. But
that plane, wall, and arrow are also the only formations that you have the spacing option, which is the anti-bumping formations.
So how's like the UI for actually initiating these warps? Is it going to take like 30 seconds for an FC to, put in all his details for how he wants to frickin' warp from one place to another?
That's a very astute concern. We really struggled with getting a smooth UI, and hopefully we ended up with something pretty strong. You want to tell them how it works, Kelly?
I mean, you all get to experience this on Monday when it goes to CC, so it's not long until you can just play with it yourself.
Explain anyway.
But basically, the UI for it, what we settled on, we started, in development, we were like, okay, is it on the right click, just, drop down selections or whatever for it. But that, like, when I was, like, I implemented that first, and it was just, like really terrible to use. Like, right click again, selecting, it was just awful. So what we landed on was, in the fleet window, there's just a new tab, which is fleet formations, where you have icons of each of the formations, which you basically just select. And it just, for example, if you want to do a wall formation, it's really quick. You just press a wall. There's 2 combo boxes, one for the size, one for the spacing, which is just saved. So like you just go 5, 10K, 2,000 meter spacing. And then just anytime you're doing warp fleet, warp squad, warp wing, warp 2-member within, all those warp fleet 2-member within, all of those, they will just pick up those settings.
All right, so if I forget to reset the settings and I warp to the gate and say everyone jump on contact and everyone lands in a plane spread out.
We also thought of that case. We also thought of that case that would be really frustrating. So within all of the text, like warp fleet and warp fleet within and all those, there's a little bracket with the formation that you actually have.
In the drop down, so you can see your setting before you warp, like without having to go to the fleet window.
Yeah. You have that in the right.
Yeah, a question I see popping up a bunch in chat. I just want to hit now is the anyone who could warp a section of the fleet before can have their own formation settings. So if you're a wing or squad commander, whoever you warp from that wing or squad will just take your settings for the warp.
It's the person who is initiating the warp. Yeah. For person who is initiating the warp, it listens to basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar then to like setting your own warp range. Like that's what bomber FCs do all the time. And that happens to me all the time. I forget to reset my warp range. I warp to the gate and I land 40 off, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to lose a lot of...
There's a lot of opportunity here to have whoopsies. I mean, if you're using relative formation at all, you have to account for where everyone is. And if someone is in a weird spot, they're going to end up wherever you land in a weird spot. If you forget to change a size, you make a warp at 50K spread, and then you decide you want to warp to a gate, you forget to change it, you're going to have half your fleet not able to jump when you land.
But like I said, in the right click, for example, if you right click warp fleet, like you'll see like, I have wall selected. So you quickly go over, you just select the point formation, which is the default on Tiki right now. So you quickly group people up with that warp. You select that one, you warp the fleet, you're back in the tight sphere. Point.
I like the idea though of like it is easy to mess up because if you create something that is like so impactful for you to be able to do exactly what you want. You also kind of have to balance that with giving you a choice to screw up, because otherwise it's like too easy, you know? It puts like that little added aspect. And, you know, I mean, the way that Pando capitalizes on his fleets is on people messing up. So.
Yeah, I was about to say.
There's 2 coins to mastery.
Yeah,
There's each side to it. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of the FC game is like, especially if like FCs that want to fight outnumbered, it's all about making the opponent mess up. It's all about that, right? So any option for them to mess up is good. It can be bad for yourself too, though, right? But
gonna be ridiculed for warping everyone, like spread wall, like at the gate, and everyone's dead.
And then so I'm a little bit worried about bombers, to be quite honest, because the first impression was that bombers could benefit from it, but like especially in bigger fights, there's going to be bubbles in it, so it's very very unpredictable. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if bombers are going to be a thing anymore. Then, to be quite honest,
I think we're really going to have to wait and see. Like, and I that's like, I guess going into it, we're expecting the situation around bombers to change and want to pay attention to that and adjust it, and we'll just see what happens. Like right now, we would rather probably the bombers had a little less ability to pressure non-hack comps so that they were more common, but it's really hard to say what'll come out of this change, and we'll just have to adjust afterwards, especially because we're also going to make some balance changes at the same time probably, and so we'll have the meta moving for a few reasons, and we'll just see where we end up.
Did you just say hack comps? you want to open that one? Because
I mean, we can open and shut it really quick. Gonna nerf hacks probably like tomorrow, and we'll see where we go. I mean, we've been slowly nerfing like continuously since the ADC was introduced, basically, but there hasn't been a big enough shift. Like we've been sort of chipping away at the Munin, but obviously the fundamentals haven't changed enough for something to move meta-wise, and it's always tough. Like the meta always has a lot of momentum, so it's not easy to get people to ditch doctrines, but we'll definitely go for a broader, kind of harsher change next, because I know everybody's ready for something different.
Yeah, I think everyone is.
And then long term, you've been asking for something even deeper, like changes to long range weapons or changes to battleships or something like that, and that's definitely all on the table. But for getting something out quick, we'll probably just target hacks again.
Well, so like I think one of the reasons why the hack discussion, I mean, it has been going on for a while, but it kind of picked up in discussion like since you posted the thing, because of the web bubble changes, and they seemed to be aimed at the hack meta, especially. I mean, when I say hack meta, I mean the shield hack kiting meta, right? Long range shield kiting, because A-hacks are really not the big issue, right? So it seemed like they were aimed at them, and then now you buff them, and like I think, like I have the feeling, especially now with the buff, it's kind of punishing the slower doctrines more than the faster ones, because the faster ones, they're hard to hit with those bubbles. The delay is a big factor in that, and obviously,
Yeah, we're in kind of a weird. I mean, I think all the comments on this are basically really sharp. Like the idea of a scram bubble rather than a web bubble makes a lot of sense, or at least as another option if we want to target micro-warping more specifically. And the delay thing is something we went back and forth about a ton, because when we were originally making it, it felt really yucky to have the dictor always web itself. So we tried to have a long enough delay that the dictor would still have a good chance at hitting its target, but would also be able to get clear of the bubble. And now that's basically out the window with the increased range. And so we could turn the delay down so that you're having an easier time hitting your target. And that would help a bit with what you're talking about. I think also this 50% number that was in the CC release, will probably turn that down a bit going into this. Kind of interesting to see how we went from at 30% and 10K, they don't get any use, and then at 50% and 15K, everybody's worried it's punishing for slower fleets. So maybe we'll shoot somewhere in between, take a look at a scram bubble and the delay, and see where we end up.
Well, the thing is, it's not going to punish anyone because there's no slower fleets on field in the moment, right? And that's that's the sad part. And I don't think the wobbles are the big factor there, right? It's just like it adds to it. Then, by the way, is that the official name? Wobbles, yeah. Wobbles. You call it wobbles too, right?
It's the stasis webification probe is the official name. We say wobble. We say wobble in meetings as well. I know. Elise was very concerned with me confirming that for him.
Like, as an FC, I kind of hate it. Because, like, how are you supposed to say, like, wobble them? And then someone bubbles them. Or, like, wobble us, right? Because you might want to enter warp a little quicker, right? And then you get bubbled, right? It's like, oof. I think everyone's very careful with saying that out loud as an FC. But, yeah.
Scrubble is a little clearer for scram bubbles, but not much still.
Scrubble, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, if you would make a scrubber, it would be just a short time, right? So no delay, you whoop in a dicta, and then let's say you have a 15 cam range, but you wouldn't scrubble someone, like scram bubble someone for longer than, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds.
Just
right?
enough to turn them off.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, I would even say one tick is probably already a better, what do you call it? A better, like fix, not fix, but a better.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like better, it puts more pressure on MWD hat comps than the web bubble does.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's always that one guy who forgets to turn on this MWD. Boom, easy target. Next. And keep those scrubbles coming. I mean, if you could just scram bubble an entire fleet indefinitely, that would be a different story. But now with the formations, it's even harder then. So maybe it's time for the scrubber.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then Capco is in chat. Capco, actually, let's see. What happens if I relative warp to a ship? Would we both 170 km?
Yeah, you would both move. So you would land, like you, the FC, would land where the ship you warped to was, and he would move forward 170k as well.
Relative to the landing point.
Yeah, so everyone's warp is...
You can just leapfrog yourself forward continuously. There's so much stuff with this that we, like, there's not like, oh, this is exactly what people will do and we can see it coming. There's
the relative
so many possibilities. And
relative formation is going to be like, okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that's why I said in my, like, it was funny reading today, everybody being like, oh, this is cosmetic, because I'm like, a little worried it's really busted, that people will find really, really busted stuff to do that we wouldn't have thought of beforehand, and we'll end up having to tone it down, which we have some levers to do. We can pull the relative, like right now, if you try to warp a relative, if someone's out 200k or further from you, they don't catch the warp, which, we needed some grids are big enough that if it didn't care about range, you'd be warping people inside planets and all kinds of weird stuff. So we didn't allow that, but we could pull that range in tighter or do other things to rein it in if it's really, really busted, but we'll see.
There is one thing that I forgot to mention surrounding the bubbles, and you'll just experience this when you try out the feature, is that as a result of our engine and how warping is implemented at the core, you will know in the tunnel that you're landing in a bubble when you're in, for example, a wall, because a wall will not look like this in a bubble. It will look like this when it lands.
So
if you warp in a line and you're going to hit a bubble and it's going to wrap the line around the outside of the bubble when you land, the warp tunnel shows that because of the implementation. We can't save it as a surprise for when you land. So you'll know how you're arranged in bubbles before you hit the grid by a little bit.
That's actually interesting. Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
You'll be like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
You'll get a really little time window to plan around whatever's happening on the grid.
To deliberate your options.
Yeah, I like having Amy's comment. You'll have just a few bits of time to curse your FC for making a bad warp. You'll see you're stranded before you get there.
Yeah, guys, by the way, like, if you have any good questions, you're probably best off to, like, highlight them, and then Miranda's going to filter them out. You better make it.
There's a
good
couple of
one.
common ones we've answered already, but I can come back to just so people are sure to hear them. One is do wing and squad commanders get to do the relative formation individually or any formation individually, which they do? Yes, wing and squad do. And then the other one is the relative formation range, which I just said again, but if you didn't hear, within 200K keeps everyone in their position relative to the person warping. Outside of 200K, people get left behind.
There is one elephant that we haven't talked about, though.
It's not really an elephant, if it's what I think you're going to say. The skills?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two skills for this, which kind of intros them piece by piece. They're not really long trains or anything brutal, but you have basically the default warp formation to begin with. So everyone has fleet warp just as it is now. And then there's one skill where each level unlocks a new formation, with relative being level 5, and then another skill that unlocks the size and spacing choices for the others. So if you want to, warp a wall that's 20K wide instead of 10K wide, you train one level.
One more level. One more level.
Okay. So all axes are buying injectors right now.
As skills are concerned, this is probably the most fun to train for, because it's an unlock, kind of feel good when you get it but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
quite a veteran feature where most people just inject it. So
fleet members don't have to have it to catch warps or anything like that. Other thing, while you're talking about questions from chat, there is feedback stuff that'd be really good to get. Like right now, the size and spacing options especially are set sort of just on gut from us playing with it. But when you guys are on CC this week, if you have any big feedback about size or spacing options, or anything to do with how the formations work, it'd be good to
tweak those values before it goes live.
Yeah, especially those values are really easy to tweak, because
the options.
I don't know if we'll make it any bigger. I don't know if we'll make the default formation size ranges any bigger, but the spacing and stuff. If you weren't here at the start too, there's Signal was explaining it's easy to say. For instance, if you're warping a fleet of dreads, you could say we're warping in a wall and it's going to be only 10K wide, and then it'll try to space them in a line and it'll just run out of space really quick, and you'll end up with just a jumbled ball of dreads. And we haven't tried to we haven't thought of every use case or even the most common ones necessarily. We just have a kind of linear set of options for the size and spacing. So if there's anything that feels really like it should work and it's not, that'd be good for us to hear.
Like a perfect value that we overthought should have been there.
Oh, and the perfect question, Kali. Someone says, do formations work on bridging and sinos?
Those are individual jump, not warps. So
yes. But it gives us another opportunity to ask for feedback, which is at the same time we were building this, we did build a sino formation so that you could open a new kind of sino, which spreads out everything that lands next to it. So instead of landing on the sino and bumping like crazy, you could have a wide radius where the stuff jumping all comes in scattered at some longer range. Initial kind of feedback on that.
We're calling it the diffuse sino, right? Or spread out sino? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when we were talking to the CSM about that, they were pretty negative about it. And so we decided to hold off until we could talk to the public, until after you guys saw this feature, and probably until after we see how this pans out too. But that's something.
Just know that it's already ready on my local.
I wonder what implications that would have. I mean, do we want the bumps? Right? That's the big question there.
I mean, for me and Signal, at least, the bumps are.
We just wanted to give you the option, just another module that is the diffuse sino module or whatever, that you can choose. Do I want to land spread out, or do I want to be in a bubble, like the tiny ball? I mean, landing and bumping.
Yeah, but there's we messing with capital tactics right now feels a little. We at least want to be thoughtful and slow, not be oh, guess what? Now you can.
One step
now everything you know about how capital war works is different.
Yeah, we decided let's release this first, and sino deployable that you were going to talk about later as well, and then we see we can just see.
I mean, perfect segue then, right? So the sino deployable, why did you feel the need to bring that one into the game?
Well, there's two big reasons. One is since we made the change to recon sinos only. A big pain point was just anyone smaller scale trying to move caps around. I very specifically remember Vegas 2 years ago. No, it must have been last year. I don't know. A very, very angry spaceship pilot who I spent a lot of time talking to. And it just stands out as it's something I've heard a lot. It was something we talked about in roundtables there, something I've seen since. There's just people, and I think it's completely legitimate. The risk, we felt the risk associated with using sinos was way too low considering their power in combat situations. At the time, umbrellas were, super prominent and problematic. But in any combat situation, the amount of commitment and risk you took to light a sino was super, super small. And but there's all these other situations, like when random Joe Plumber or whatever is moving his carrier around in low sec, where forcing 250 mil of risk feels like way over the top. So we wanted something for that use case. We introduced the industrial sino to catch the jump freighter case, which was a lot of it, but there's still kind of any other, like moving to mids, moving small groups of capitals, moving individuals, that just having a cheap option felt important. So we get that with this, hopefully. I mean, we have to tune numbers and make sure it works for that without being too powerful in combat, without being too expensive or too slow to use for random folks. But then it also lets us test mobile deployables as a paradigm for sinos, which is something we're really interested in general. Right now, sinos being tied to ships through a module is got all kinds of problems. It means that for us to do any balance on cost or risk or power for sinos, it has to be bolted to a ship, and that's just annoying. Like, we can't balance recons now without it affecting sinos and how that works. We can't balance the sinos separately at all, other than the module cost. And so we're at least interested in moving all sino behavior over to deployables, so that you don't have to sit dead in the water in a ship to light a sino, and you can drop a structure instead. And then we can set up rules around those structures independently of ship balance. But we'll see how it works, and we'll move forward from there. If it turns out people don't like it, or there's some problem with doing things that way instead, then we can just ditch it and just go back to focusing on modules. And if it works out well, we can kind of start migrating things over to more deployable design.
In the past, I would have said yeah, you say that now, you can just ditch it and then change it, but we're gonna wait for that 4 years or so. But recently you did iterate fast, which I think a lot of people appreciated. When it came to ESS stuff, when it came to all kinds of stuff, you guys were actually iterating quicker, and much appreciated.
We picked up super fast pace last year. Do apologize for the break. We took a little time off in the holidays, but yeah, we want to get back to going fast.
Yeah, which is really nice to see. So in the sino things, do you have some detail how you want to do it? So what I read, you can open it on a station on Zero, on Citadels and other stuff, obviously. But yeah. So what happens if you have two of these sino, deployable sinos next to each other? Can one block the other? How much range in between them? So in a fleet fight,
they don't block each other. You can have as many as you want. There's probably some, there's probably 1,000 meter or some small distance. You can't actually anchor them on top of each other, but there's no 50K block out range or something. You can just pile a whole bunch of them on top of each other. It's fine.
So, and then my big question would be, how much hit points are they going to have? Is it going to be a mobile depot, or more like a sino jammer?
I have them right now about half what an inhib is. It's I want to say 40K EHP or something like that.
It's still quite a bit though.
Yeah, it might be a little high, if anything, right now.
Yeah, because
you're not going to kill it. This also depends on anchoring time, right? How big is the time window to kill it after it goes down, which right now is set at 2 minutes, but that's also something we can tweak either way.
So that's the two big factors, I think. The price tag. Right? Is it gonna be so cheap that you can just spam it? In big fights, for example, I could totally see every ship on grid will have one of those, and then we want to make sure we can always sino in, so we deploy them. Are they gonna get shut down when a sino jammer gets online? Are they gonna be off then?
Yeah, jammer turns them off.
So I don't have to kill them in order to shut them down like a normal sino.
Yeah.
Didn't Master
But
Plan
if
make them
you
explode?
want-
Can
like-
you make them explode when the jammer comes on?
I think they explode if a system Sinojammer goes online.
All right.
If a mobile inhib goes online, the beacon just turns off.
Mhm.
Or maybe it even makes it just so that you can't anchor more of them. I need to check on that. It might not actually turn off the ones that are active, but
Yeah, CCP Master Plan is the engineer behind this feature, who's on Talos with Rise.
But yeah, we just need to get the EHP in a place where spamming them isn't practical because they just all die and you just waste a bunch of money. Like that's, I think there may be, because they don't show up, they're not going to show up on overview until the beacon's active. I mean, they show up on DScan, on ProScan, of course, so you can find them when they're dropped other places. But if someone's not paying attention, you could drop them and jump to them in hostile space and in a combat situation. If they just didn't get found. But I don't feel like that's a big problem necessarily. It's only a problem if they can be spammed on grid and they're inefficient to kill. So you can just make sure a Sino's online by having too many. So we probably just need to get the EHP down to a point where that's the case.
So, and then Bjorn asks, will a Sino inhib block it going online? So if the Sino inhib is first, and then you put it up, is it going to online and then just not be active? And then when the Sino jammer is done, it's instantly there?
I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't work when it goes on. I don't know if it sits there and then turns on after the inhib goes down. I can check on that, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe, like, the Sino stuff, I don't think it's going to have, like, a massive impact on, like, big fights. There's always going to be that rapier for the big groups. It's not a big of a deal. So I think it actually will have hopefully a positive effect on the smaller guys, like just like that one guy moving his stuff or so, and like having an easier, cheaper time, I guess.
Also, someone asked if they're permanent. They're not permanent. They have a expiration like inhibs, so they just decay after. Right now, I think it's an hour, but that's another dial. It's easy to change. They definitely aren't permanent.
People want to know too, like how you're going to get them. If it's going to be through the LP shop, if it's going to be a site thing. They're
built. It's almost exactly the same as inhibs. So you buy a blueprint from NPCs and just build them. And right now, the price is another important point. Of course, it has to be expensive enough that they're not just absolutely throwaway free, but cheap enough that it's a lot better choice than recons. Right now, the price I hope is around 20 mil, but of course, it depends on market demand and how long till supply gets up and whatever. So we'll have to follow up on that too if it ends up being too expensive to be worth it.
Yeah, I think 20 mil is probably a good price tag, to be honest.
And are they going to require fuel?
No.
No, there's nothing.
There's just
don't be so sure, Pindo. We can put fuel in anything.
That would be ridiculous.
It's just that anchoring time, of course,
no,
for it to go online.
The only cost is in the build. There's no fuel you have to bring and stick in them or anything like that.
Imagine you would have the deployable, but then you have to put the Sino, the liquid also
anchor
in there.
it and then fuel it.
Oh my god!
Can they be picked back up after they get deployed?
No, they can't. They're fire and forget. And then for how big they are, they're not very big. But I was actually
they look pretty sexy.
That the other day, I feel like they're at like 250 M3, something like that. Like. Not super, super tiny, but small enough that you can fit them in most stuff. Cruisers for sure.
And is there a special like skill limit, like anchoring level 1? You can anchor it.
I think it's anchoring 3.
All right. Before the show, we were actually talking about some other stuff that I wasn't aware of at all, and that's just like quality of life stuff. And Signal, maybe you wanna dive into like some of those things, because
sure.
I was kind of surprised I didn't even pick up on that stuff.
We did that like that was mostly like CSM was having those discussions with you, correct, Steve? Like or you can comment on that.
I mean
those two quality of life changes.
Been pushing for eWarp for quite a while, and then. I don't know where that even started, but it's been a while in the making, and then like a while being discussed. And then the other one actually was from came up during stream chat.
I actually made those quality of life changes before Christmas, and they've been sitting in the sandbox kind of to go out as like this travel package.
Wait, did you say what they are?
No, those two changes are the full speed alignment on warp failure is what we're calling it, meaning that. When you get pointed, when you're initiating warp, you're aligning, you're for example, half the speed or something up to the warp, and you get scrammed. now you get pointed. You would just completely stop if you don't double click in space. Now you'll just continue going to your max speed. It's like a quality of life change. And then the other one is an opt out of the emergency warp. So when you DC and your ship warps off grid, you can.
In case for some reason there's a problem with the system while you're flying
Never
a
happens.
captain.
Never happens. Everything's fine.
Just in case the server can't keep up with something. Like, it has been a while since we've seen that. Must be like 2003 or something, right? So, but just in case the server can't keep up, and you have a disconnect. All right, that's a good move, definitely, because that was, I think, if I remember correctly, in X47, like one of the bigger battles in 2019, 18, I forgot when it was actually. I think 2018 it was. Imperium actually lost a Moloch to a disconnect, which it's just such a shame, right? You can't, like, he just warps off, is a million km away, and then their dread bomb is just fast enough to kill him, right? And it's just such a shame to lose a Moloch to a disconnect like that. So that would definitely be one way to avoid that, which a really good change, I think. More options, always good. I mean, I don't want to say always, but
more mastery.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of another. I hate to like go back to the fleet formation thing, but I was just like thinking in my brain while you guys were talking. I know. So like, because someone talked about like warping into like an ESS site, and if you warp in, if you can like kind of push people forward. What about the same with like wormholes? So when you warp to the wormhole and you warp on the beacon, if you warp in a fleet formation, can you push people closer to the wormhole, so like to a drifter hole, so you don't have to burn all the way to it?
But those are all activations off of a gate, right? They're not warps. Like into an ESS, at least, you're activating an acceleration gate, not warping in, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so it doesn't care about your formation option.
So what about a wormhole then?
The wormhole
is the same.
Is it? Can you not fleet warp to it?
You can fleet warp to a beacon, to the beacon.
Yeah, to the beacon.
So if you fleet warp to the beacon and you fleet warp in a formation that's like super spread out, then you'll push you can potentially push your own fleet towards the wormhole since you're landing on the beacon.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's, so from what I heard from you guys, that's definitely a possibility. But as I think one of the most active drifter wormhole users, I don't think it's viable, because yes, you're gonna land like 2 or 3 people close, but what about the rest? Like, everyone else is gonna land somewhere else.
Fuck the rest of them.
Or you have to have the perfect angle.
If that becomes a problem, we can also like accept some of that stuff, or like figure out solutions for it.
Yeah, we could
make terribly game breaking. Like, there's a bunch of probably cases that we haven't thought of, which is why we want people to go on CC on Monday and just try the hell out of this, and we want bugs to come out, before we go to TQ. I will fix the hell out of them, and then if they go to TQ, I will fix them as well. Like, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
The answer is yes. Technically, you can push some people closer to the beacon, or like if you have a custom formation and you have the right angle, which is the key in this. But you could do it before too.
I immediately thought, like, as an FC, you could actually slingshot the entire fleet, while you would have to.
Yeah, but you have to have the right angle, which is like you need to have a bookmark or a celestial, which is already the case anyway, right? So it's it's tricky. And setting that up, I think it is possible to set that up fast, but it takes a lot of experience. So then you go into the skill part, which is kind of what you would always want, right? So if someone is skilled in something, he should benefit from it. So like, just thinking about it now, for now, I would say like it's probably a good thing then. I mean, I'm saying that obviously as a drifter wormhole user, but
and for testing this feature, of course, it's like a lot of the formations require a lot of bodies. It's hard for me to run more than 10 clients on my machine. So, or like even with we call them thin clients. I had at maximum 20 of those running and initiating warps, and like there's only so much that we can catch in testing as individuals. And there's of course going to be the mass test that we'll be performing on CC as well. But power to the people, man. They're gonna figure it out more. Like they're gonna get some bugs probably. Like hopefully not. I've done my best.
So the mass test is gonna be when?
I was just looking for the tweet. I
think they haven't officially announced. Like
no, we have.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I think it's on the Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday at 1700. I think I am correct in saying.
But the war patch is already live at that time, right?
No, so
did you say Monday?
So on Monday it goes on CC, and then the mass test where
CC.
we have like our QAs performing the mass test on the Tuesday right after the day that it gets put on CC. You know, we have the mass test on CC.
All right.
Yeah,
there's we invite people to come and test it with us.
Trash Mob made a forum thread, and you can find description of that. Yeah, if you look for Trash Mob, CCP Trash Mob on Twitter, find the link to it. If it's not,
I also noticed I think it was more than one who was having concerns, and I know you, before we started the stream, you had concerns about server performance for the formations. And since we're back on them, I can address that. That in the underlying code beforehand, we were individually warping people, like we were going over everyone in the fleet and warping them. So that was already happening. So rest assured that this is not terribly expensive on tie-dye, and we're gonna be crashing nodes with this.
Yeah, that was one of the big questions. If you warp like an entire fleet of 250 people, right? Is it now gonna add complexity to it? And if it's the same level, then obviously it shouldn't change anything. Mm-hmm. That's definitely good to hear, because like currently the fights, especially in Delph, they are always on the edge of the server performance. So adding to it would definitely be a nightmare right now.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea from I don't remember who it was on your stream last week, talking about deleting all drones as a way of improving the game, but also would help with performance a lot. So I'm going to look into that.
God, no.
I think it was Captain. Like, there's a couple guys in this game, couple FCs that are just in. Like, I'm sure, Rise, you know that, right? Some FCs are really into thinking about these changes and like having like bigger ideas. Like Captator is one of them. Then you had Capku, who's not actively FCing it right now, but he is still involved, as you can tell. Like, it's just a matter of time till he comes back. Or like I don't know. There's or Loro Seco was also on, right? Like there's some guys that are like thinking about these kind of things all day, every day, right? And then they come up with this. Like, I didn't think of that at all. Like, just removing drones from a lot of holes, it would change a lot, and it would.
I mean, that's obviously pretty extreme, but I actually think there's something to it. Just maybe a middle ground there.
Yeah, we started discussing it. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Or just changing it mechanically to be like a single drone, but visually it is multiple drones, and just like
I was about
stats and places to improve server performance, like the fighters kind of are.
I was just gonna ask, like, fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
they don't have to have the complex AI the fighters have, which is expensive though.
Yeah, and we saw it in the boson trap. Like, fighters, like they weren't all perfect.
Yeah, but there was a lot going on there, but
there was like it was unfortunate. Yeah, and that was actually like, I thought it was just a plain server thing, but like apparently that it was confirmed to be a little bit of a bug, because fighters only get damage like once per tick, or like they can only lose one fighter per tick, so it kind of like made the bosons only do one tick damage because of tie-dye and all that stuff. That was a weird, unfortunate thing. I mean, it was a bug after all. So if you like that idea from Captator, and I think it was Captator, I'm pretty sure. What about, and we talked about, or you brought up guns before.
Mass on guns.
What about mass on guns? No, but Captator has also a big point about guns being weird, and I'm sure he talked to you about that before, which is, he always says there's no like heavy penalty on like range when it comes to tracking, because like the further you're away, the better the guns track, which it kind of makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, it's totally true. It's a big thing to go and mess with, but I think there's definitely something there, and we've like, I was going to do a big battleship gun rebalance that was going to make the lighter variations way better tracking than they currently are, so there's more distinction, and make the longer range ones way worse. Maybe do that for all guns, but then we actually got into like a plan for a big, complete, full like tier aside, but like really dramatic pass on all weapons, and that was half made. And then the designer working on it, people realized he was smart, and he got moved to other stuff, and so now it's sitting, and we need to pick it up again. So I don't know.
It's actually on my list. On one of the streams, on one of your streams, actually, you brought that up. You said like, yeah, we're kind of looking at a big rework on guns. I was about to bring it up, and
yeah, I mean, it's needs to happen. Like the module tier side in general has gotten to like most important module groups by now. There was a lot of work last year when Talos was getting off the ground. He was a junior designer then, and was like working through all the kind of most of the groups that hadn't been hit before that. And this project has always just been like get picked up and then put down randomly. And his final kind of awesome big thing to tackle was weapon stuff. And there was like a pretty
I remember
exhaustive plan to go and rework it all. And it'd be so good. It'd be so good for usability and understanding how they work in early game, and it'd be really helpful for differentiating balance and getting more diversity into gun use at the top end. But then he had to put it down because he moved to another team and some other projects. So it might be something we can pick up for him and keep running with sometime this year, but we'll see.
So in what way would he, I mean, can you talk about that? Like, in what way were you guys looking at guns then to rework him?
I mean, I can't speak to all the details super well, but the most important thing is just that there's such an insane number of unused variations. And if you look at like gun performance as a whole, it's just so cluttered. There's kind of everything is piled on top of each other in too close of a space, so the choices aren't very important. And like you were saying, that it's almost never correct to choose the lower range, lower damage option. Like for every gun group in the game, you're always taking 800s, you're always taking 425s, you're always taking 720s. Like there's very few cases where you take anything but the longest range option, because longer range always gives you more damage than better tracking would.
And it's usually fitting restrictions, right?
Yeah, it's only if there's fitting restrictions. The only time you compromise is when you care more about fitting than about that other stuff. So when you look at, it's crazy. If you look at like medium projectile turrets, there's like 120 different types of medium projectile turret, but on the server, 95% of the damage dealt by the entire group, all 125 variations, is just by 722s or by 425-2s if it's autocannons or whatever. Like, there's no meaningful choice there. So the idea is just like strip a whole bunch of that out. Like obviously leave
streamline it out,
variations, but cut down a lot on the meaningless choices, and then make the trade-offs between the longer. And that's the part I don't remember exactly how he had it all drawn up, but make it so that, the long range, higher damage option wasn't always the right choice. Like make sure that the trade-offs there with the smaller variations was actually valuable, so that
more meaningful choices and streamline it up.
You weren't picking just based on fitting only. But yeah,
that makes
sense.
Anything else you want to promise up your sleeve, while you're at it?
If I promise enough stuff, maybe everybody will realize why it's only one thing at a time, even though we promised like 20 things.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about like how many things, like 10 different things, Yeah,
and on top of it, there's almost everybody is working on NPE, so it's I think we have a really awesome group working on veteran stuff, and last year especially, we were able to hit a lot of really cool areas. But at the same time, the priority, as we've been saying externally for a long time, is to try and help people get into the game more effectively. So right now there's a lot of research going on, a lot of development going on, trying to help early game folks.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry,
you go.
I remember when you guys first announced that you focus on NPE stuff, like new player experience, and there was the big question, for how long, right? Like all the veterans are like, yeah, it makes sense, we want more people in the game, but at the same time, like, for how long are you going to focus on it? And there was never an answer. Like, is this phase of focusing on NPE stuff, is this coming to an end, or do you think like this is gonna go on for like another like decade or something?
EVE's gonna last forever, and the NPE
I mean-
is gonna be worked on forever. I tell you
Eve's
that
a
right now.
dying
Yes.
game.
But it's like so
As
like,
long as EVE's alive, the CCP will work on the NPE, I
I-
think, and try to improve it as much as they can.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
that,
history
that's
is
clear.
probably the best way to look at it. Like we always have been working on the NPE.
Yeah.
Like
Keep
if you
new
look back
blood
at
in.
the very,
Get
very
new blood.
early days patch notes, there's NPE work, and there has been ever since.
My man Rise was sent to the Gulag to work on the NPE, right? For some time. No, kidding.
Enthusiastically privileged to work on the NPE for a while. Yes.
I'm gonna get thrown on the NPE for that comment, so I'm really sorry. Please,
The NPE gulag for you.
no more fun.
I mean,
for me.
the last thing I was doing in E before CCP was working on the NPE as a player, like running trying a training corp for PvPers. Like half of the player base basically works on the NPE by trying to help with onboarding and run recruitment stuff, and like we all
that is
want
super
more
important.
people.
We need new blood in the game, for it to live on. Like,
Yeah, I mean, my question was like, there's more of a focus on it, right? Like
Yeah.
recently.
I mean,
So
we
that
stepped up
focus,
in the focus. Yeah.
there's
And also there's a lot of the NP work isn't only it's not like it's all just the first 20 minutes tutorial. There's right now actually spinning up more like kind of cross-sectional usability projects like
NPE.
NPE.
Yeah,
Yeah,
NPE is such a broad
there.
term for
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many things.
And a lot of it-
Yeah.
You could boil it down to the UX of Eve is, could be improved immensely.
I mean,
And that would-
technically,
and that affects better.
fleet formations could be part of a new player experience. If he
Exactly.
joins the fleet
it's
and
totally an
gets
NPE feature.
So
Warp in formation, feel cool, meet an FC. Exactly.
I tell
Yeah.
you what, it's gonna look cool for sure, and that's always a good thing, right? Because
Yeah, we would be
I
on
mean, I
the
love-
we would be on the NPE team being like, the fleet formations is the feature to make for the NPE. I tell you guys, like, it's gonna be so cool.
I understand people were, worried there wasn't going to be any like meaningful functionality with the formation stuff, but it was so nice to watch a trailer where there's like ships warping next to each other and it's not make believe, where it's like actually something that can
Yeah.
happen rather than just like moved around in the editor or whatever in the trailer making.
It's one of those changes that everyone like is gonna be like, after all, like let's say in a year we talk again, like it's very normal. Formation stuff is very normal, and then people tell those tales like back in the day when we used to only land in this little spot and then we would get bombed to shit.
Tacklers
and all that
actually
stuff.
had to fly to their targets instead of getting warped by an FC to their targets.
Yeah. I think that's like, those days are gonna come at some point where people are like,
We had to make marks if we wanted to spread bubbles over a station. Yeah, that'll be fun actually.
Yeah. That's one of those things. Everyone packs a bubble and then you just warp to the gate in a cube formation and you do the
And
Borg
everyone
bubble.
bubble.
There is a lot of
Genius.
stuff you can do.
I mean, I know there's gonna be very, very creative shapes with the formations flying around in Cheetah.
Well, we all know
We
95%.
are aware.
Yeah,
I don't know,
95%.
We just got rid of anchoring cans, and now it's just going to be mobile billboards warping back and forth, spelling out like Moonshine or whatever that corp name was, or something. less
Moonpire.
appropriate.
He's actually
Moonpire.
in it.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
be a
he's in it
Moonpire.
now.
Yeah.
We actually kept hunting his rockals, and he was shifting away from rockal mining. He's like, hey, I want to do more PvP oriented stuff. And he just joined us. I was like, no, I've got to target less, which is, especially right now, since everyone's so condensed in Delve, I'm like a little sad. Like, I want to go all hunt, right? Give me more targets and space. And I hope maybe in the near future you guys are also looking at this, right? Getting more people in space for NPC, like PvE stuff.
Yeah, it's a little more on the eco side, which we can't speak to super well, but they are definitely looking at that, getting more, better distribution of people across space is definitely a priority for them, and doing that through updated PvE incentives is definitely a big part of that. So hopefully more stuff coming on that soon.
Yeah, I think at the moment, because people are so busy with the war stuff, like they don't notice it as much as I do, maybe because I like I'm very focused on like hunting and all that stuff. I just hope by the time this war is over, we get people back in space more actively and more, maybe we see more supers, more rockets again. That would be really nice.
Yeah, we've specifically been talking a lot about. Well, whatever. Never mind. Leave it for eco guys. But talking about getting.
Well,
I know we need targets.
I think it's hard too though, because if like without going into the whole eco thing, you're trying to balance resource scarcity with giving people enough incentive to go out, but the more incentive you give them, the less resource scarcity there is, because they're going out to get the resources in the first place. So it's it's a delicate thing to balance.
Totally.
Yeah, and so also I wondered, like in CCP internally, like when this war kicked off, I bet everyone was a little bit hyped, right? And then at first it went very slow, right? So I think the first 6 months we actually had less destruction in the game than before, and it all changed as soon as they got into real delve. You know what I mean? So
they're not
like
in real delve, Pando.
and then suddenly,
supposed to say that.
Yeah. But suddenly the destruction went up like crazy. So, and that kind of plays into the whole like resource scarcity thing. So like it kind of seems to be working out like people wanted it to. Titans dying, like we've never seen so many Titans die, obviously. And the prices are going up. I'm not sure what it's going to be like when it's peacetime again, if it's ever going to be.
Filling up the coffers again, slowly or slower?
Slower, yeah.
Yeah, it's so tough to read. Like we never have a control case. Like the whole environment's always moving, like you say, because of the war. So like trying to figure out with whether it's economy changes or balance changes or whatever, like did the metrics change because we did something, or did they change because you guys did something?
In the war.
You guys went to war because.
Because Pando broke the nip, and then we all went to war.
Yeah.
I say, I don't want to be commenting on this stuff because it's not in my control, and it's like I don't want to be speaking for other teams. So that's their realm. And
someone asked if maybe the metrics changed due to COVID. I'm actually interested. Do you guys it's totally okay if you didn't look at it, but is there did the metrics change at all during COVID as far as like logins and stuff? I mean, did you see an uptick in player activity during COVID time? I would assume so.
I think it's widely known in the gaming industry that it was just like a huge boom to all games.
Everyone played a lot.
I saw some just recent articles, so I think it was like 20% increase in revenue in the gaming industry or something, basically due to COVID or something. I was reading just the other day. Yeah, so and definitely had an effect, and the war, of course, helped a lot as well.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell I think it's probably a little bit of both, and if you think about it, the war actually was like good timing, because I know at least for me, I started teleworking during like the height of my involvement in the war. Yeah, I was literally sitting in 10% tie-dye fleets, like with a meeting going on the other side, praying that they couldn't hear my clicking.
I mean, all I know is Team Talos formed right at the beginning of last year, and the numbers have only gone up since then. So probably nothing else had any effect on.
Nope.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've seen Hilmar and other devs like CCP Burger and other go on streams and talk about that there was an uptrend before COVID and all those metrics. Like they've talked about it a lot, and we don't know because we'll never know what the uptrend would have been on how I think we did last year. And we were talking earlier, like even ourselves, we forget how much we did last year. Like the two teams, like Ra and Talos, that we are on. Like I was because you were asking me earlier, like what are some of the recent stuff that you have been working on. I was going over my changes. And there was a lot of stuff that even me had just forgotten what I did last year, because there was so much stuff that we were doing, rapid releases and stuff.
Yeah. Were there any surprises, like you did like anything you put in the game where suddenly it wasn't like a super positive thing, or negative, like where you thought like, oh shit,
the Proving Grounds was very, I guess, controversial. Like either you hated it or you loved it, or you hated and loved it, like a love-hate relationship. for a lot of people, and I was the engineer on that, and I was worried how it would go. It started out at that.
I think the Proving Grounds kind of went exactly how like most people expected it to go, where it was super hyped at the beginning because there was something fun, but then after a while it kind of like petered out a little bit. People just went back to doing their normal stuff.
Yeah. You know what also?
Hold on. First off, I just want to say too that on the Proving Grounds with me and Deadlift, we completely destroyed everybody.
I remember that. You did well. And I definitely want to give, this reminds me that I wanted to give a shout out to my homie CCP Finger for working on that specific feature, and he helped, he's basically my yellow rubber duck all the time for I'm a kind of engineer that really likes to bounce off others, and he really helped me on the free formations as well, along with CCP Master Plan and Rave, those two guys as well, like those homies. Big shout outs. I see a lot of love from me and Rise in the chat, and I just want to spread the love some more.
It's adorable.
I was about what were we talking about before? No, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about Proving Grounds, and
the Proving Grounds.
And features that we worked on last, I guess the last year. I mean, the biggest one and was voted by. What stream was it I was in? Like most people, of course, like it's been talked about so much, is the filaments that me and Rice worked on. Like was one of
the filaments.
Everyone loves the filaments.
Yeah.
And
we talked about it.
I mean, not everybody, because this is Eve, but like most people love the filaments.
So you know why people love them is also or people praise them a lot is because you got it right the first time, and it had the potential to go very wrong too. Right? Yep. It was a little bit of a risky thing. It was a little crazy. And I had my I instantly think about ways to exploit it, of course, right? Like let's see, can you filament hostiles maybe, right? Before we had the feature in the game, just warp to a hostile fleet and just click filament, and 20 of them end up in random space. That would be crazy. But you guys thought about you guys thought about all those situations, and I think it probably also had to do with your experience in game, right? Because you are both small scale roaming experience, so you probably had an easier time to think about every situation there than you would have, for example, in a Citadel rework or Posses or something, right?
Definitely helps to know the product and that type of gameplay when you're working on a feature like that, for sure.
Yeah,
and also how we we were less worried about releasing that feature. I remember, even though it's a while back, is that how we skinned it as the reindeer filament. If people remember, that's how they were introduced. It was a limited time thing. We were just trying it out, and that's why we also didn't get as much hate or worry or whatever. We're just gonna try it out, see what happens.
Yeah.
And then it was
done.
There were chants for it to come as a permanent feature, and there were debates. I remember within the company: should we make it a permanent feature or keep it as an event type of theme item?
Yeah, and I'm glad you made it a permanent thing. All the small
the metrics just spoke for themselves. I remember Steve had a lot of meetings around this. I didn't have to go to as many meetings around decisions about making it permanent, but there was just the uptick in activity and around the feature. It was just too much to not make it a permanent one.
But I'm not gonna lie though, my favorite part of the filaments, sorry, I ran back so I could say this, is the artwork, with the reindeer filaments, when you actually filament and you see the freaking reindeer on it. I want that, but I want it to be a bunch of different designs, just kind of randomized, hearts and shit.
Yeah.
No, because it's not formations, because it's just the artwork. But it's
you know what my request was? I wanted a tunnel that had snow in it. And ho 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 when you went through.
Oh, that would have been too much. That would have been too much.
I was
and you're on a sleigh and you're going through the tunnel. Just our team get on it. It's easy.
Christmas ting ting ting.
Yeah. Why not? Why aren't you guys?
What I wanted, man. That's what I wanted. That's what I asked for.
You got disappointed.
It was fun. It was fun.
To come back to the
sorry
to the Proving Grounds, nothing to be sorry about. The Proving Ground stuff, I thought maybe the reason why it's dropped off in activity fairly fast is also because like there was too many too fast, right? So
Yeah.
there was the 2v2 cruises, and I participated in that with the whole
Yeah.
Twitch what do you call it, event, right, where everyone did it with like some CCP dev.
Yep.
And it was great fun. And then the next one came, and then I already lost track after like 3 of them. Like, is it
Yeah.
active now? Is it like
Maybe like
Yeah.
one a month for like a week every
It-
month
it-
or something like that to do a
like-
different event.
The activity isn't terrible for it right now. Like we have it
Yeah.
rolling at events right now. Like Fossey and the game designers that we have on Team Ra are just continuously rolling out. Like because it was very configurable and authorable. Like how we set up the feature when engineering it. That they can easily just make different types of formats, like you have seen, like free for alls or 2v2s or 3v3v3s or 5v5v5s or whatever. Like, and it's just all about making them accessible and easy to get into and just have fun. And some of them more competitive, and a bit more spacing in between as well. And we're trying out different things all the time with them. And then yeah.
So, yeah, I think there was 2 major concerns about them, and it was like the first one was that it would take activity out of the actual game, and I think I wasn't
A
too
lot of
concerned
people in
about that.
LoSec were upset about the idea.
Sorry, say it again.
Like a lot of people in LoSec were upset about the idea of having these proving grounds because that's like what they do. All of the Amamake people were like, "What the fuck?" Like
The I'm a market people. But I think that's not what we've seen, right? And the other concern was, and now I forgot it again. Oh yeah, the other concern is that it would be like the Abyssal proving grounds,
Yeah.
where it becomes a very tight, small group that does it, right?
Mhm.
And it's a feature for like 50 people, and then everyone else is kind of excluded. So I think that was my main concern, and I think it happened to a degree, but it wasn't as bad as we would think, right? There's a couple people, right? Shout out to Cable Uta, right? Cable is always active in those, especially at the beginning. He was like hardcore nerding and going crazy with it. But I mean, there's a ton of people joining these. I think, especially because you have the ship types limited to like T1 cruisers, battle cruisers, and stuff like this. So yeah,
we also iterated on the feature while the formats were rolling out, and like had the module restrictions and the ship restrictions and stuff, and as well, like can definitely be improved on a lot. And we also just wanted to try this out, like with the previous filaments. Like this was rolled out as like event formats instead of like a arena World of Warcraft arena feature within the game, like set in stone, like with these type of ranked game modes. And like I was fairly certain, and I'm fairly sure it was proved that we just do not have the amount of people for those type of modes, or like for ranked gameplay and different types of game modes running simultaneously. You know, like we just don't, like you'd be sitting in queues for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Deadlift about the ranking, like the ranked type stuff too, because I think him and his team like worked on.
He's on my
he
team.
did the QA stuff. Oh,
Yeah, he's
okay.
not-
His team, yeah. They and you guys were talking about how it'd be hard to balance it and to find a way to actually do the ranking itself, because if it's like based off of the percentage of fights you have, people win one, they have 100% win rate and they're like, cool, deuces. Or if you have it based on like having to win a certain amount of fights and people are sitting there having to grind, and I mean, I don't see like a logical way of doing it that someone can't exploit somehow.
Yeah, we decided to lean less into like the hardcore ranked kind of type gameplay and more into like just a proving grounds kind of. You get rewards for being in the top 100, but it's also just like honing your skills against random people. Sometimes you get good fights, sometimes you don't, like just in regular Eve.
It's very accessible. It could be NPE, right? A new player could do it.
I would have pitched this feature if I was working on the MP. JK.
Well,
I just want to reiterate. I meme about the MP, but it's important.
Yeah. Like I think nobody picks it up as like you're not an NPE hater, right? It's like it's all good. Did we forget any of the new features? Did we not talk about something that you guys think maybe we overlooked that you want to point out?
I mean, we could go back to stuff. The only thing I think that, well, we didn't talk about much of the balance update, the Marauder stuff. We also didn't mention that the target painter resistance is removed from structures, and the monitor has a drug bay and a cargo bay now. So you might like those things.
I do like. So I get the monitor thing, right? And I like the monitor. I fly it rarely, to be quite honest.
Okay.
But one of the annoying things is like the cargo bay. You can't use drugs and all that stuff, right? You have to use like a snake set if you want to be in a fast one. Yep, that's definitely nice. And then the target painter. So what's the change with target painters?
It just makes it so you can target paint structures, so you can get on kill mills if you're in something that has a painter that doesn't have guns. So
well, yeah, I mean, there's probably some people that would like end up
inching our way towards lodging on kill mills slowly but surely.
But so one point about target painters, which I always wondered about, is so if you have EWA resist links going, why does it not resist against paints? Like why? Like so.
Does it do all the others? Does it do TDs and damps and ECM?
Yeah.
Great question. I don't know. Probably should.
All right, go ahead and put it on your list. All right, can't be that long of a list. And then so Marauders. What are you trying to do with Marauders then?
Trying to push them towards higher risk PvE is the main thing. Maybe make them like a kind of a light carrier routing option for anomalies or other riskier PvE stuff. But and of course, at the same time, they'll be quite a bit more interesting for PvP, even though that's not the main focus, because they're just going to do super insane damage, and they were already used, although obviously not super commonly, but now you'll get a lot bigger payoff for putting them on the field. So that's cool. And I think a lot of there was a lot of feedback, and Marauders are kind of funny because they're divided. Like when they were released, they had a pretty confused identity between being a like a chill mission ship that you could get kind of once you had the money for it, and a solo Pwnmobile kind of elite PvP ship. Like we kind of sent mixed messages about which it was supposed to be, and they kind of have some value in both those cases, but over time they definitely, got a lot more. Like they're actually, I don't know, like the 6th most popular PvP class in the game, or PvE class in the game. Sorry. So they're used much more for that than they are for PvP. So we just wanted to push them more that way now if we can. But at the same time, I think a lot of the feedback for adjustments we can make is totally reasonable. So I'm going to try and get as much of that. I'm going to be, as soon as the show ends, scrambling to get Marauder tweaks from feedback, some kind of hack nerf, and some other stuff figured out as quick as possible, so we can get into the patch that the Marauder stuff was going into, which is a couple weeks before the formations patch, which is going to be in the second week of March, right? Or February. What month is it? March. So yeah, lots to do.
All right.
What else was on that?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, what else did you mention? I think we covered it all, actually, at least to a degree. There's always going to be a few.
It'll be fun to, I was talking to Signal before we started about. I think it'll be really fun to see what comes out of the formation stuff once you guys get to start using it. I think it's hard for us to guess. Like I was saying, it's such a open-ended tool that I think it's tough to say, and it'll be fun to see, once people start warping grids of dictors somewhere to do something, or using the relative warp stuff to pull off cool tricks. I'm hoping we see a bunch of arguing and posting about that, and hope we don't see fleet combat devolve into like super 400 IQ stuff where no one can tell where anyone's going to warp and everyone's tackled immediately all the time. But
those memes about that, calculations and things, thinking about how things will land.
Over here, mark, and then I warp. He'll go across underneath, and that'll give me a tackle on their guy that's in the back there for me. Like, I don't know.
No. All right. Then
People keep asking about Angel Titans. I just have to
there's
say,
like a million questions over there I wish I could get to. Like, yes, absolutely, we need to do Navy battleships. It's been like on the short list for a year and a half. The only reason it's held off is because we want to do something a little more interesting with it. I've said that before. We still want to get to it. Angel Titans, I don't know. Probably not, unless that art is almost done. But I don't think it is. Probably not.
your heart's breaking.
Sorry. I don't know.
A question I like to throw out is, you're a design king for a day. What do you change?
No one said that. Me?
Design
Delete drones. I told you earlier. Just delete drones.
I mean, not you.
Oh, that.
I can tell you right away what I would be working on day one is Citadels. That would be
I was gonna say that for you.
That's what we did.
My number one priority.
Station games.
And you'll be working on them until the day you leave CCP.
But guys, we are running out of time. I'm not gonna go on my Citadel rant, but yeah, I think
Citadels and Hodreds.
An hour later,
Hodreds are not big of an issue at the moment. I get sometimes triggered about Hodreds, but that's I get sometimes triggered about being blobbed. So it's like it's just how the game is. But
a single change to Citadels, what would you make?
What change
to Citadels?
So
would you make if you get one change?
Games back, right?
All right, so I'm gonna give you guys the super short 1 minute rant then, right? Obviously, you guys are very aware there's details to everything.
I've touched this nerve.
Right. So my number one thing would be to only give Citadels defenses if they're being attacked. So if 10% of their shield is missing and they're in repair mode, then they have their defenses. But otherwise, they wouldn't. Then you would have people warp to Citadels, even to Keepstars, bump stuff around and all that stuff. Talking about Keepstars, the DD, it shouldn't be activated on subcaps. It really shouldn't, right? Give us the monitor, it's great. Yeah, you don't want us to get headshot. Unless you're attacking a Keepstar with subcaps, which obviously it's not designed to be attacked by subcaps in the first place, which is already hard enough to do in subs, but then you get Doomsday on top of it. It's like, the PDS, I don't know, maybe something is to be done about that too, but the bomb launcher, I don't know, right? There's a long discussion. I don't think it's that impactful that we have to lose our minds about it. And then the other thing would be someone just said a damage cap. Do we need damage cap on every Citadel type, right? That's a big question. Or should it only be on staging Citadels? Then the whole asset safety thing, should it be only asset safety in your home station, right? Your home base? And the other one is maybe 50%. So something drops out of Sotios, something drops out of Raitaroos and smaller targets. So people have an incentive to go kill them. And more interesting incentive than the the quantum cores, I believe. But what else? There's a lot to it, right?
Are you writing all this down, Steve?
You know what?
I believe I have a document already.
I did write a lot of stuff down with the help of so whenever I do write something down and I would send you a document, then I already bounce that off like a lot of FCs over a lot of time. And then obviously I know you guys listen to the podcast every now and then. I throw this idea at like every FC basically. When I'm very convinced about something, let's see, maybe you can poke a hole in it. Be the low sig guy, be the wormhole guy, right? So, yeah. There you go. The super short Citadel Pando rant.
I've heard the long rants as well, so.
You haven't...
you haven't heard anything. Oh my God.
Not in those back rooms, probably. Like, God damn those mother.
I'm like playing The Sims, like, Yep. Oh, I know, it's horrible, isn't it? So broken. Oh.
Tell me about it. Oh.
Well, guys, I would say I'm gonna let you go. Even though we could sit here for like another 2 hours. It was much
We'll come back.
appreciated.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it was so long between last time. I meant to come back faster.
It
But,
took us a while to set it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's always the same with you. Or every time we talk about doing it, I'm like, oh, but if you wait 2 weeks, there's a really cool thing coming we can talk about. And then
yeah, and then you tease me like
get
that.
there, and then it's the same answer. Then that
But I can't
2 weeks
talk about it.
So
Yeah.
sorry about.
Yeah, he tells me, I'm like, oh shit, like what is it? Like, oh yeah, it's FC related. I'm like, it could be anything, right? Like, so I'm throwing guesses at him. He's like, I don't know, right? It's kind of fun though. I like it. So, not a complaint. All right.
It was fun to talk though. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks
I
for
think it
coming
was-
on.
Yeah, I think it was good stuff. I hope everyone got most of their answers they were looking for. I think I did. So, and then see you
and
guys.
like I said, we're going to be cramming a bit to get the feedback that came from yesterday and today kind of put into the patch for next week. But when this stuff goes to CC next week, keep all the comments and questions coming. And even if I wish I could, convince or express how helpful it is to hear from you guys, even when we don't go into every thread and respond. It's like really, really important to hear all your impressions and ideas. So thanks to anyone who's contributed, and hopefully we'll hear from you next week after the
Negative and positive comments are like good to get them all.
I like both of them. My favorite thing actually from this stream is when we were first talking about formations, there was two comments. I have them here. I can't show them easily, but back to back, where one person said, so does that mean bombers become useless in Eve? And the very next comment says, bombers just got OP as fuck.
Yeah.
Happy to hear both. Kind of sums up our situation a lot of the time.
That sums up Eve. Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely a pleasure to have you talk to you guys.
All right.
It's been a blast.
Yeah. Then thanks again, and see you next time in like a year or so, right, Rice?
2 weeks, right? 2 weeks.
And the guys on stream, thanks for the subs and all that stuff. And there is a Vexer skin at the end. So there you go. The fastest, if you're the fastest, you get it.